Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Super Subs Podcast. Your host, Harish.
And co-host Narvin Amatia.
All right. So today I thought we'd start with, we usually do the Super Subs of the week, but thought today we'd start with a little song, Narv. This is for you. We don't talk about Bruno. No, no, no. We don't talk about Bruno.
We can talk
When
about him because his red card got appealed and we won, so he's back.
Ooh,
Bruno's back,
you
baby.
guys finally won something. Um,
Yes, been
but
rough.
yeah, we'll get into that later this episode. But yeah, like
Savage
usual,
song.
uh, we'll start with our super subs of the week. Uh, Narv, I'll let you start.
I think my super sub of the week would be Angel Carrera for Atletico Madrid. Um, he got an equalizer in stoppage time against Real Madrid, and is a game Atletico. We'll probably get into it a bit more later, but is a game Atletico Madrid actually could have won it regulation time. So, I was kind of glad he grabbed a late goal to at least secure a draw.
He's had a couple game tying goals already this year, coming off the bench. So it's a good shout. I don't think we've sh shouted him out yet.
I feel like it's always been Duran who gets the constant shout out.
Yeah, and I think speaking of Duran, the man, the magician man, he's my super sub of the week, just based on what he did today, in the Champions League versus Bayern. I know Neuer is probably at fault. A lot of people will say, like, what's he doing? But it's classic Neuer. He likes to play as that sweeper keeper. But for Duran to have that composure and yeah, it's an easy chance, but I mean, it was still like he had someone right on his back, and he did have to lob it over Neuer. So good finish and just being composed and being a threat again, and coming up with another big goal. Uh, he's my super sub of this week.
Yeah, it's crazy the audacity he has to take some shots. It's just like old school, just ripping it.
Yeah, I think Everton was the best goal of the season so far, in the Premier League. And again, that was John Duran. And then today coming up clutch against Bayern. And it was awesome to see, it's cool to see Villa back in the Champions League, but how much it means for the fans. The stadium
Yeah,
was going crazy.
yeah, at that full-time whistle, like they were just serenading Unai Emery. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I thought that game, so far from yesterday and today, I thought that game was probably, uh, the atmosphere was the craziest. And also, Leo and Real Madrid. I thought that was another crazy atmosphere and just the ultras going crazy after the goal.
That's one big thing is with the leagues outside of Premier League, those ultras, there you go, like hardcore.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just a different, even if it's not a great team, just the environment they create just makes it tough.
Oh yeah. Shirts off, mask on.
Fire, flares everywhere.
Yeah. So, today I think we'll do kind of just a recap on, it's been a couple weeks now, so just a recap on the latest games in the leagues. We'll touch on the Champions League as well. There's a ton of games, but we'll just choose some of the more entertaining games. So we'll start with the Premier League, and I think, you know, we have to start with Manchester United versus Spurs. Break that game down, and then maybe just talk about United's progress so far. So Manchester this past weekend lost to Spurs 3-0. They didn't just lose, they got thrashed. It was an absolute beatdown. Terrible performance. One team showed up, the other just did not. And I think that's the story of Ten Hag at United so far. But I let Narvin go ahead first and talk about
Yeah,
United.
yeah, I think the game, I wouldn't solely blame it all on Ten Hag. I think players ultimately have to also take responsibility. Um, Yeah, but from minute one, our team just it felt like we were like half asleep, just sleepwalking. And the from the very first goal, what minute was it? Fourth minute.
Yeah, it was within
Super
5 minutes.
early. That goal was just a carbon copy of the goal we conceded in the Europa League during midweek, where a defender, granted Mickey Van de Ven, I mean he's a center back, but he just carried the ball from his own 18 to our box, simple cross, to the
Untouched.
back, yeah, untouched. No one even puts a challenge in. Um, and the disappointing part was, I know I've mentioned that once Bruno gets to his age where he has to retire, that I think it's either Lissandro Martinez or Dallo that takes the captaincy. But seeing Dallo, what he did in that first goal was just quite unacceptable. I think he saw Brennan Johnson running the entire way, but Dallo just let him go. Like he didn't even track back. And once that cross came in, he just casually just like puts his hand up to apologize, but makes no effort to get back. Could have been a simple goal to prevent if he just tracked his man. And then I know Chris Kavanaugh, if I see him in the streets, we're scrapping, sending off Bruno. But even if Bruno didn't get the red, I think
You
that
you
entire
guys were
first
not
half
coming.
was, I
Yeah.
think that first half was probably one of the worst first half performances, or even in general, any performance, probably the worst performance I've seen from us since I've like watched this. It was just hard to watch.
I think even if Bruno did stay on, there was no chance that you guys would pull off a tie
Yeah, I
or a
don't think
win.
there was there was little hoping I was doing just because of the chances that Warner was giving up. I think if Sun was on that squad, it could have easily been five, five, six.
Yeah,
Um,
Warner, man, like he just, I mean, everything up to when he gets in front of goal is great um against United, but his finishing was just dreadful. I mean, props to Onana though. Really saved y'all a ton this past weekend, and I think this season so far, Onana's been one of the better players for y'all. Like he's been,
He's
uh,
slowly come into his inter playing days of how we all kind of know
oh
he
yeah,
can play. So
he's saved y'all a ton so far.
mhm.
Um, and so I think even if Bruno did stay on, there was no chance for you guys to grab a point. Um, but it was really just starting from that first goal, just the way Mickey was able to drive through your entire midfield. It just didn't make sense considering how you set up in a low block. Um, and I don't I don't know what can kind
Yeah,
of fix that. Like I don't even think that part comes down to coaching.
no, that's just effort. And I think conceding so early is always gives you a bad feeling. And then I know that second half again they score within 5 minutes into that second half, um, which is just disappointing to see. And the players just were not up to par. Mazarawi getting cooked all game. This is probably his first bad game since he's
Yeah,
come
that was
in.
his first bad game. Warner,
Dallo asleep.
yeah, Warner and Madison though, and Udogi, the way they were kind of connecting on that left side was giving. But I think it comes down to Garnacho, honestly. When I was watching Garnacho, I was getting so frustrated how he was not tracking back because he was leaving Mazarawi 2-on-1, 3-on-1 at times with Madison, like the three of them. And Garnacho was just jogging back and he was right on the United touch line. And if I was Ten Hag, I would be on his butt like to get back. I mean, he was leaving Mazarawi completely exposed. Delap was trying to come over, but center backs like shouldn't necessarily be so close to the
Yeah.
touch line, and it was
And
just a
I don't know
mess.
if I don't know if that might be part of the blame that Ten Hag gets just because I think he knows Tottenham plays such a high line. If that was the opportunity to kind of leave Garnacho a little more further ahead, to catch him on the counter. Um, But yeah, Mazarawi kind of needed help. And then Xerxes, he's known for his technical capabilities, but his
He had a
touch was
stinker.
off, passing was off. Um,
Yeah, it was an absolute stinker with Xerxes. And Rashford, he was pretty much invisible all game. I think the couple dangerous attacks did come from him, but it was honestly just a couple hopeful long balls over the top trying to get Rashford at the
mhm.
end of it. And eh, he, but aside from that, he was invisible. I mean, I think the whole attacking option with United was just invisible.
It was, yeah, probably one of the most painful performances to go through, which is kind of frustrating as well because the week prior versus Crystal Palace, those first like 60, 65 minutes was probably the best we've played in a long, long time. So I was hoping at least some consistency would carry over, but we just came out flat, half asleep, and just took a beating from a Tottenham.
And I think even midweek against FC20, like Ericsson was really a game changer that game. Was he the one that scored?
Yep.
I think it was Ericsson, but he was a game changer. But aside from that, again, there were some huge liabilities in that midfield and defensively, and which is really alarming considering the opponent you're playing midweek. Um, but yeah, I think Alice is probably the one game where Southampton, I'll skip over that just because I
Yeah,
think
bottom
bottom team,
relegated guaranteed. Yeah.
yeah, they just look terrible. So skip over that. But Palace, I agree. I think first half for sure, y'all dominated. Second half, I think it was a little more even. But even then, it, it's against a struggling Palace team right now.
Mhm.
Not much to speak for. So I don't know. I think United. So would you still want to keep Ten Hag? Because ultimately, I do think this is and something that frustrates me a lot. And we talked about this about a month ago. Is he does not take blame himself or that criticism, and I think after this game, he was like blaming it all on the players. But part of it has to come down to him, and he's had a couple transfer windows now where he's been given the reins to get the players he wants, try to implement his tactics. I get it the first year, even the second year, there were excuses that he didn't get the players that he wanted. He hadn't had time to implement his philosophy, but now he's had that time and transfer windows to do so. And honestly, I think United's looked worse.
Yeah, to your point, that first season, I think that was a overachievement for what he did. Second season, I gave him a pass just because of the amount of crucial injuries we had. Um, I mean, the amount of center back combinations was just ridiculous that we had to go through the year. So this year, definitely summer transfer, we got the backing. I think we have a really good structure in Ineos. Glazers kind of backed off now, and it's all run by Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, um, who are like the heavy hitters. They know what they're doing, so he has their support. Um, so I still have faith in him just because I know what he's capable of. Like we've seen his Champions League run. We've seen the way his Ajax team played. It's just frustrating he can't implement that style with United, even though I feel like we have some players that can that are able to play that way. Uh, but it's just not working.
It
But
just doesn't seem like United has like an identity. You look at a lot of these other big clubs and teams that are doing well, and they have a way that they want to play. They have a style. But it honestly seems like United's just from the start of the kickoff, they're kind of chasing it already, and they're just trying to play in a way where they don't lose. Is kind of what the like mindset looks like.
Yeah, honestly, I was able to see his style of play more so in the first season. Like there were some games where it was really impressive, but it's just all falling apart. Um, but I still, I was a huge fan of him when he was at Ajax, so I still want to have faith. Um, I don't necessarily want to get rid of him. At least give him till Christmas time. Um,
Hmm.
but ultimately, I mean, if things don't work until Christmas time, then we should probably consider bringing in a new manager to give them enough time to at least put out some of their ideas and some of their wants in the winter transfer window.
Yeah, I think in terms of a potential replacement, coaches that I think would fit well with this team is someone like a Tuchel, like him, or
I
well, I
like
guess,
Tuchel, but I just don't want him because I feel like he's very hard-headed, almost like a Conte where he doesn't last long with teams. And I'm tired of just rinsing out managers. Like I want a
but I feel like the
long-term.
ownership of United now, are giving their full reins to the manager, and that's ultimately what Tuchel always wanted. That's what Conte wanted, and that's the reason that they didn't ultimately last at Chelsea is because the ownership wanted total control.
Yeah, I think the most realistic thing that will probably happen is if Ten Hag is gone, I think the hiring of Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to be used as like the caretaker
Hmm.
until we
For sure.
get in talks with people.
And another sign of just a coach that doesn't seem to know what he's doing is just the recruitment at United. I mean, Lenny Euro really like if you're trying to win like again, Lenny Euro, Xerxes, yeah, they may be players for the future, but like are they really the guys right now? And I guess the biggest signing, a position that you needed to get was clearly someone to replace Casemiro, defensive mid. And is Ugarte really that man? Because he has not looked up to par. I didn't watch him much when he was in France. A lot of people like so I mean, Liverpool were linked to him, but they clearly were like, no, we don't want him. And they had their reasons why. Their recruitment's really good. So that's another issue with I have with Ten Hag is like is he even does he know like what type of players and profiles that he wants? And is he like able to identify the quality players?
Yeah, Ugarte, that was the question mark I had on him was he's the type of player he has the legs basically to just cover the ground, but in terms of getting the penetrating passes or progressing it from that build-up play, I don't I don't know if he's that type of player, but
I
I mean
think
he'll just
Casemiro's better at that.
yeah, those he has some of those progressive passing and like one-time balls where he plays it over the top, but yeah, Ugarte doesn't really have that in his locker. He's more of just a ground cover. Um, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if Ten Hag makes it through the year just based on how United's been trending.
Yeah, it's been a disappointing year. Uh, but I think Ruud van Nistelrooy would be the caretaker, and then once we actually discuss with managers, it's probably going to end up being Tuchel or De Zerbi, I think,
I don't know. De Zerbi's really liking life with
in
Marseille right
Marseille.
now,
Yeah,
right
he does.
now.
Hmm.
So, and another issue I have with Ten Hag this week is every single person that knows a lick of what's happening, or if you have eyes and can see what's happening, the obvious choice would be to start Ahmad out wide. And for him to be on the bench against Spurs was shocking. I thought that was a shocking decision, considering he's arguably the best attacking options y'all have right now.
Yeah, I'm surprised he always gets rotated. I thought Diallo would be a lock on that right wing, and then it's just a matter of if Rashford's on or Garnacho. And at this point, I think Rashford's just not. He's just lost all confidence. I think it just has to be Diallo and Garnacho on the left. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think Diallo has to start.
I feel bad for him being on this United squad because he- that's a player right there. And it's unfortunate that he's being rotated like he is. And I think he deserves better. I think another player that deserves better is Bruno. He's someone that gives 100% every time, and he's got quality. And for him to be on this United squad where he's not able to express his creativity, I can imagine it's frustrating.
Yeah, that's the one player that I would absolutely die on the hill for. I know I was gonna give you the uh like arguments that if he was on that City squad, he'd put up as great of stats as De Bruyne. Which I still fully think if he's on City, he
I
could
don't know about De
be close to
Bruyne.
replicate. He could replicate De Bruyne, but I mean Bruno, I think he's world class. Just right now, he's just on a squad that doesn't have the players that are to that caliber.
I don't know about all that. You had me until comparing him to De Bruyne. If you want to
Honestly,
speak,
man,
if you want to speak about world class, I think we should transition into talking about Chelsea next. And Cole
you mean
Palmer.
Cole Palmer FC?
No, this is Chelsea FC. I mean, Cole Palmer, he is our best player, but no, we are much more than just one man. I think what we're building right now, I am excited. I think we're building a dynasty right now that's going to be dominating Europe in the next 5 to 7 years. And w teams need to watch out because we're cooking right now. We are cooking. Um, and there's another guy over here that we have. He was all smiles this past weekend. Uh, right after United's loss on Sun, so we played on Saturday, and then on Sunday, right after United's loss, our social media team posted him smiling. So Jadon Sancho, he had another great performance for us, and he's quality, and I'm just shocked that we were able to get him. I mean, I know it's just on loan, but um, he could really be adding some value for United, but I'm glad he's over on the good side here. Uh, part of
I'm
this
glad he's
dynasty.
gone from us. Didn't do anything for us.
I don't think he was utilized correctly.
I don't think the system we have, I don't think it just suits him like to his playing style.
No, he's definitely not a counter-attacking type player,
Mm-mm.
but he's got skills to break down teams. And I would he could honestly play that number 10 role if needed and could play probably next to Bruno, which just wasn't really tried. And at Dortmund, yeah, he played majority out wide, but he was also able to play at that number 10 role. But he looked good again for us this past weekend. So to those listeners, Chelsea, we won 4-2 against Brighton this past Saturday. 4 goals by Cole Palmer first half, making some history. He had uh, he had a 2 open play goals, a penalty, and then a free kick as well.
Hit the
Um,
post, had an offside goal, could have had six.
yeah, he also had one with his right foot, barely missed. He was toying around with Brighton's keeper. Another player that I thought looked really good, and I'm happy that he's been improving, is Nicholas Jackson. Again, I think he's going to be the best striker we've ever had. His composure in front of goal now, compared to last year has been incredible. Night and day improvement. And I think the leaps he's been able to take is incredible, especially considering how young he is still.
Yeah, I think it was that third goal for Palmer where he squared it. I think a last season Nicholas Jackson, who is maybe a little still not immature, but still not as developed. I think he would have tried to gone and finish it himself, but now you can see that he kind of knows the situation he was in, just plays square past the Palmer, so kind of see the maturity there.
Yeah, and I mean, people love to give him crap and, you know, poke fun of him, but I mean, we need to think like this kid is 23 years old. He's had one full season under Chelsea, another one full season in Villarreal. He played for like maybe 10 games for Villarreal before his first full season. He played for their B team. So for him to be playing how he is with very little experience at the top level in La Liga or Premier League and the improvements he's making, I'm very excited to see. Ultimately, I think his ceiling's kind of up there to be one of the world-class strikers eventually.
I think the only negative from your guys' game was the two goals given up was just quite cheap. Um, both
Yeah.
goalkeeping mistakes too.
Yeah, Mr. Lightskin over here. He has some superb games, but then there's always a game here and there where he makes a silly mistake and costs us a goal.
He
And
was
I
the
think it's just
undercover agent for Brighton that day.
yeah, I think he also like has that mindset where he has to play out of the back just because that's how Enzo likes to play. And so I think it was that second goal where he kind of tried to play out of the back and it was a difficult pass to make, like thread the needle, but ultimately went right to the Brighton player. Those are mistakes that are going to happen in our system because we like to build out of the back, and that's just how we're gonna play. And there's gonna be mistakes that happen. So unfortunately, it was just Robert Sanchez this past weekend.
And I think this was one of the games where um a reason why I had Brighton kind of finishing mid-table as a my prediction, even though it looks like they might finish top 10, but I think their coach was I think this game was a good lesson for him um in his young managerial career. Um Brighton were just playing a crazy high line versus a Chelsea team that's like quite quick, especially on the counter with all the like Madueke, Palmer, Jackson, who are all really pacey. Like having Lewis Dunk and Adam Webster as your center back pairing playing that super high line was just it was a little surprising. Like it just seemed like they were going to get exposed each time.
Yeah, it was an insane high line that they were playing. It reminded me almost of when we were playing Tottenham last year and the high line that Tottenham played on us. It felt very similar to that. And I was disappointed that we weren't able to score more goals, but um, I don't think there was a doubt after the first 20 minutes that we were the better team. Um, and so I think Enzo, I love the way he kind of plays this kind of vertical style. And um, the one area that I still want to see improvement is in our central midfield. Enzo, I think he's still got some more in him, and I'm hoping that he can still improve because I think that's one area that we can improve on is that central midfield position.
Yep. Um, and was Lafia was back in the squad, or was he
Y-
still out?
Yeah, he's back now, healthy. And another player that's kind of, I think, could be like our future captain is Levi Colwill.
He looks solid.
Fafana looks good. He's really good on the ball as well. But man, Levi Colwell, his leadership, you can just really tell in the back. Um,
I
like
think
I'm
last season
just,
was a little unfortunate judgment that people had on him because left back's really not his
oh
strongest.
no,
So
completely agree. But this is a dynasty we're building. I mean, think about back in the day, 20 like we had Drugba. Now we have, I think, who's going to be even better striker and Nicholas
I don't know about
Jackson.
that.
Trust me. We had Lampard. We have Cole Palmer now. Um, I mean, we had Michael Ballack. We have Caicedo now. We had John Terry. I know probably the best center back in Premier League history. Now, I don't know. Levi Colwell might be him and Fafana giving me the Terry Cahill flashbacks. Man, it's crazy feelings out here. And Reece James,
Casado to Ballack. Oh,
dude, I'm
crazy
telling you,
comps.
man, we're we're building a dynasty, and I'm here for it. So,
Yeah, and the bench is just completely stacked. Literally, it's an all-star bench.
oh yeah, we have depth in every single position, so it's exciting.
Two ends of the spectrum. Excitement at Chelsea and then Manchester. Well, Manchester United, just complete disappointment. But I think we'll get there. It'll just take a lot of time just to rebuild. I think Omar Barada is funny. He has target of 2020. I think he said 2027 or 28 is when we should be challenging for a title.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag's long gone. Um, yeah, that's just terrible targets to set. 4 years, man.
He's a
Um,
smart man though. Stuff he did at City.
I guess so, but yeah, United's got problems starting with their coach, I think. Um, but if you want to talk about excitement and craziness, I think the game we need to talk about is the Arsenal Leicester game.
Yes, that was a wild game.
Wild. Man, when Leicester tied it up, that James Justin strike, incredible. I didn't know he had that in his locker.
This yeah, this past weekend there was a lot of really great goals all over. Um
Hmm.
but yeah, Arsenal were on the ropes. It was comfortable and then once they gave let their lead go, it was a little shaky.
Oh yeah. Leicester had a couple other chances, which is strange because Arsenal is, one of the best defensive teams out there. And Leicester were kind of breaking them down. Arsenal ultimately was the better team. I mean, they had to come away with the win there. They they deserve the win, but still, for them to struggle against this Leicester team, I think is a testament to either this, just, in Premier League, anything can happen in any day, but also where I think Arsenal were quite lucky at the end. They left it
They
that late.
they've had a few lucky moments this year.
Hmm. I mean,
They
they
got
deserved to win.
copped
They
out.
dominated, but
Yeah. Copped out by another Gabriel goal. Another set piece goal too, off a corner. It
yeah,
was
Trossard coming in clutch.
it was a bit poor defending honestly on Leicester's part though in that corner, but
I don't know. I thought Arsenal, their corner kick plays are pretty nice. The way they were able to shield off Leicester's players without a foul, I thought it was clever. Whoever their set piece coach is.
I'd say Aston Villa has a better set piece coach. It might be
Uh,
close actually.
yeah, Arsenal scored the most from set pieces,
Set-
though. I think that's testament to their set piece coach. I think the fraud finally got his goal this season.
Who?
There's one attacker that does not belong up there.
For
Uh,
for Arsenal?
Arsenal, Martinelli.
Uh
Well, I guess Havertz too, but that's a different story.
Havertz has been slow like
No.
he's been getting the goals. That's all they can ask for.
He's definitely a hard worker, but that's a position I think they need to upgrade if they
Yeah, they
want to be
definitely can upgrade,
serious.
but
If they want to be serious title contenders, right now it's just jokes, man. Like, where are they gonna get the goals from? Come on. It's jokes. We said it in the first puck when we were doing our predictions. The thing that's gonna hold them back from winning the title is getting the
not
goals.
gonna have this full striker. Yeah, that's definitely a position upgrade. And then I think that Odegaard loss, we'll see how much that might hinder them because I think he's out for like 2 months.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll see if that comes to effect.
Yeah, it seems like Arteta's trying the Trossard and Havertz
Hmm.
duo, but yeah, they did, beat PSG midweek, but I thought PSG looked quite poor.
Yeah, they didn't have a good performance.
So I don't think that duo is gonna work out. Odegaard's gonna be a big miss. Do we know how long he's gonna be out for?
They don't have a set time frame. I think they just mentioned it was 2 to 3 months.
Oh wow, that's quite a bit of time.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so just to read out to listeners kind of what they have upcoming just in the league, they'll be playing Southampton, the Emirates, then they'll be going to Bournemouth, and then they have Liverpool at home, then they go to Newcastle, then they have Chelsea. So there's some tricky games in there, and two important one, or I guess three with Chelsea, Liverpool, and Newcastle there, uh, that are ultimately, when it comes down to league deciding points, it always comes down to a couple games. So some big ones that Odegaard will potentially miss.
Yeah. And speaking of Newcastle, they gave City a little bit of trouble this weekend as well.
Yeah, Haaland was locked down, back pocket of Dan Burns and Fabian Schär.
I don't know about that. He was getting
Come
locked.
on,
Yeah, he was getting locked down, but at the same time, his team you could tell he was getting frustrated because he was making runs, but they just weren't being spotted. Um, just Bernardo Silva and Grealish, they just weren't really crossing the ball like.
well, I thought Grealish was, but Bernardo Silva wasn't.
So I think he was just getting frustrated because he'd make the runs, not get found, so then come back and then Dan Burn and Shar would just follow him. So I don't know. I don't think it's all on Holland just getting locked down. He was making the runs,
He
just not getting found.
he was getting locked down though. The way that Dan Burn and Fabian Schär were playing, they were at least Dan Burn, the way he was playing was heads down, just looking straight at Holland the whole time. He had n no care for what else was going on, and he was really frustrating Holland, you could tell. Yeah, part of it was that he wasn't getting the service from his teammates, but for him having a big body on him the whole time, I think that was frustrating him as well. And Dan Burn was doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
And for someone that should be what is considered a Ballon d'Or type player, more than just a goal scorer, I think there's more that he can do.
I think
He
we're discrediting Holland a bit.
he he was really he was stretching that back line, but you have to kind of adapt to how the game is unfolding. And if people are really saying he's the best striker, like the way people are talking about Haaland, then he needs to be able to adapt.
Man, I don't know. I feel
He
like you're
doesn't show
just
up. He doesn't show up against big teams. We know this. He doesn't show up against big teams.
yeah, but I feel like it's unfair to just kind of discredit him. Um, he's one of the top players in the league. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, we'll give him a couple weeks. When he plays Wolves or Southampton, he'll bag another hat trick here and there. Ooh, Southampton, nice hat trick, and then
Man, we got a big
he'll,
Holland hater.
I,
Holland's on course to break his own record. possibly this year.
Yeah, but again, he's a great player, but I think he is a little overhyped. He gets his hat tricks here and there, but again, they're against these low level names. He doesn't show up against big teams. Champions League games with City, he never shows up. It's usually Foden saving them, De Bruyne coming in, Rodri saving them. So I think there are more important players on that City team, but it's always Haaland getting the shouts as the best player, and so I mean I'm not going to take away from his goal scoring abilities, one of the best of all time, but as a holistic player wise, come on, he was getting shut down by Dan Burn.
I think one player that we could say had an absolute stinker that game was probably Gundogan though. That man,
Yeah,
I think that was one of the
He-
worst games I've ever seen him play.
I think Bernardo Silva also had one of his poor performances.
Yeah, I couldn't really see any creativity from him that game.
Nah. So I think if they had better games, they probably find Haaland gets a tap in. But someone who had a great game, I thought was for Newcastle, Lewis Hall.
Yeah, he had a good game.
He was shutting down the left side, able to drive the ball.
I do wish City played Savio more. I think he's a better option than Grealish and Doku.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I still think Foden should get more playing time. I don't really get why he's not playing.
Yeah, it's weird from being the Premier League Player of the Year last year to
Yeah.
being benched this year.
He was City's savior last year,
Hmm.
plenty of times. So I'm confused why he's not playing. And maybe that's a typical Pep type of thing where um, he's got to make a name for himself. So he tries this crazy things and
Overthinking.
overthinking.
Yeah.
So,
Because even when Foden came on, the whole dynamic changed, creating more chances. So
oh, exactly. Even against when they played Inter in the Champions League a few weeks ago, it was Foden who kind of came in and changed the game.
I think Newcastle, they were kind of out of the game until really getting that PK. Um, so that Isak injury, I think it's a toe injury he has. I wonder how long he'll be because I don't. Obviously, Gordon, he's not going to make the most of impacts playing as their striker.
No, it's a completely different type of style they're playing. So it is a little worrying. And then Callum Wilson can't stay healthy ever. So,
Mm-mm.
but I think that's an impressive point that they were able to pull through against City.
Yeah, that was a hard fought point.
Yeah, Lewis Hall, like seeing him play though was a little frustrating for me because that's a player that we had that we kind of developed and kind of let him go, and not many people talked about that transfer. But he's a solid player and with a bright future.
Yeah, I know when we did our transfer 11, I think he was um I don't know if he made either of our lists, but he was definitely talked about as possibly being one of the transfers
Hmm.
of the year.
Yeah. So I think a few other Premier League games that we can just we'll touch on the score, and then if there's any that you want to discuss, we can. Um, we had Brentford tie West Ham and Bournemouth scoring within
Shouts
a
out
minute. Yeah, so shout out to them.
third straight game where they score under a minute. Crazy.
Yeah, but unfortunately they weren't able to get the win again. Um,
Yeah.
so they tied West Ham. West Ham was a team, they're struggling right now. So they're in 14th, but they looked pretty poor. And it was a team that we both thought had a transfer window that was the best one of the best in the Premier Leagues. And I think it probably just goes down to coaching with Lopetegui.
Yeah. A little bit of coaching and then also just making that amount of transfers. It might take a little time to get the team to gel, but coaching wise also is just not a fan of the coach.
Yeah, I'm putting it all on the coach just because some of his decisions with who he kind of sets up in the team just doesn't make sense. The way he's playing so defensive in the midfield, he has no balance at all, and he's not able to control the ball in the midfield. He's starting ultimately three defensive midfielders at
Yeah,
times.
it's no
It's like,
creativity in
what are
there.
you doing? And I thought they should have just kept Ward-Prowse or uh Paquetá. Like he's getting benched at times, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he's just putting way too much reliance on kudos. So it's easy to figure them out when it's literally just having one player you're relying on to give all
Hmm.
your creativity output on.
Yeah. I'm hoping, I'm a fan of Thomas Frank and I like Embuemo, so hoping Brentford can turn some of these solid, I mean, decent performances that they've had. They just aren't able to get the win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think Embuemo, that is another, you mentioned James Justin goal. Embuemo, I think that's another goal that was a screamer this weekend.
Hmm.
That was a tough finish.
It'll be interesting after this year to see if he stays at Brentford or if he goes to a bigger team.
I kind of want him to go to a bigger team because I think he can do it at a bigger team.
Oh yeah, I agree. And he's such a versatile player. He can play wherever you want him up top. You can maybe play the 10 and maybe out wide too.
I thought he would have been a perfect fit for Tottenham as well if Solanke was, because I think Embuemo would be a cheaper option, but I think he could have really fit well for Tottenham as well.
Yeah. Or where Kulusevski's playing right now in the midfield.
Hmm.
Although Kulusevski, that's one player that we didn't talk about, but has looked pretty good in the midfield this year.
Surprisingly, because he's usually only looking good out wide, but
Yeah,
drifting
usually
in.
stinking it up.
Hmm.
Another game this weekend. Everton came back and beat Palace. They won 2-1 finally. Can we get applause in the chat here, Narv? Clap, clap it up, clap it up.
First win for Everton.
Yeah, here are they going to make the run? You had them kind of high up in your table, so hey, maybe this is the start of it.
Hopefully, especially with Jared Braithwaite back in the back line. It looked a lot more solid. Thank God. Michael Keane is not a fan of his. Um, but a player I am a fan of, especially this year, Dwight McNeil. I think he stepped up tremendously.
Skill set in him, but now it just feels like he's taking that leadership type role, like, and he's able to express himself a little more. He's not just kind of playing the game passively, showing what he's got. He's kind of taking that, like, I'm him type of mentality.
Yeah, and that's a perfect way to describe him because after that first year at Burnley, when he ultimately got that move to Everton, I felt like there were games where I felt like he would be ghosting and just like didn't seem like he was putting in that effort, but now it's like he's just, as you mentioned, just taking control.
Hmm.
Um, so him and Dai, um, they're a really good dynamic together.
And Jack Harrison's always consistent too,
Hmm.
always putting in good performances. So, and Sean Dyche, I mean, Sean Dyche is the manager that you want in this situation, I think, to keep you
Yeah,
up. So,
it's a scary start for Palace. Still winless, but
yeah, that was one team where when we did manager of the season and outside of Pep, someone I wanted to give a shout out to was Oliver Glasner, but they haven't had a win yet. Kamada hasn't looked too good this year.
I thought he would step up big time with Elise's absence, but
Yeah,
he hasn't.
he's been stinky, but I'm not a fan of playing both Mateta and Nketiah at the same time. So I don't know. Maybe just start one of them. I want to see what Nketiah's got being up top. Maybe let Mateta come off the bench and play a Kamada out wide versus in the middle.
Do you think Mateta just had a bit of a purple patch last year, or you think he's still got it to get the goals for Palace?
Uh, I
Because he was
think,
on fire, like especially that second half of the year last season.
yeah, I think he was on a bit of a lucky run. It's tough to say it just because like he's such a likable guy,
Hmm.
and I hate bashing those types of players. And I'm not trying to bash him, but I do think it was a lucky run, and he was just in really good form. But I think he's a good player to bring off the bench, maybe rely start here and there, but I think you have to try to go with Nketiah here.
Yeah, I feel like he more brings more of a dynamic playing style for them. The
Yeah,
one
and
player that's also been slightly disappointing, and I don't want to be too harsh because he's still very young, Adam Wharton.
oh,
Uh,
really? I thought he's looked good.
I think he's looked decent, but I don't know if I don't think he's been able to carry like exactly what he replicated, especially with that second half of the year from last season to this year.
Hmm. Yeah, it just seems like the morale's a little down at Palace. But I think one player that probably made the difference last year's second half was Decore.
Yeah, where has he been?
He's, I believe he's been injured, but he was a huge piece of that puzzle last year.
Yeah.
So once comes back, I think you ultimately have to play Kamada where Nketiah is playing right now and put Nketiah at up top. I think Decore will be a huge difference maker when he comes back.
Yeah, he's super reliable.
But I mean, shout out. I mean, just going back to the game, shout out to Dwight McNeil for an absolute banger and bringing
Yeah.
Everton back. I mean, Palace they scored pretty early first half and seemed like it was done and dusted. And here we go again type moment for Everton. But they fought back. Uh,
Glad it was Everton doing the comeback this time.
yeah. Fulham, they beat Nottingham 1-0. Uh, Raul Jimenez scored a penalty for Fulham. We can just kind of just gloss over that one. And then Liverpool, they had first half was, I think, all Liverpool domination. Second half was a little more exciting. Liverpool were ultimately the dominant team throughout the game, and they ended up beating Wolves 2-1. Uh, any comments from this game?
I'm just glad that Wolves' tough run of games is coming to an end. Because honestly, the performances that Wolves have put in, they don't they don't deserve to be a last place team. Because quite frankly, I think the performances they've put in are deserving of wins, at least a couple of the games. They just couldn't see some of them out. But again, they've literally faced like the toughest schedule you can possibly have to start of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think their tough run is over yet. They still have to play. Their next games are against Brentford, at Brentford. Then they have City at home, and then they have Brighton, at the Amex, and then they have to play Palace. So it's still kind of a
Yeah,
tricky
it's
run of
tricky.
games here, especially with City there.
Mhm. I just hope they stick by Gary O'Neill because I think what he's done with Wolves is good. Um, haven't had the results, but I think the style of play and performances they've put in is still quite good
I agree. I'm hoping he stays as well. I did have him as my first manager sacked. That's just
because of the games.
because of the
Yeah.
games. It's kind of unfolded as I thought, but it will be. Uh, I don't think it will be a smart choice either if they
Mhm.
decide to let him go just based on this. But if they can't turn it around afterwards, then I think he'll be in trouble.
Yeah. But
So
that left back for Wolves, he he just makes me like him each week more and more. Ryan Nate Nuri.
yeah,
Defensively, he can be like a little shaky at times, but big
he's a
fan of him.
workhorse and he's technically very good.
Hmm.
Um, so now those were the Premier League games this past weekend. And if we want to move into some of the other games across other leagues, on that Saturday we also had Bayern. Leverkusen play Bayern Munich. They tied 1-1 there. And I think a headline from this game or Bayern Munich season so far has been the play by Elise. I thought he's been probably their best player so far, and he's really you you can see why he was so sought after. You know, at
Yeah.
Palace, you're like, like he's the best player at Palace, him and Eze, so like of course he's gonna look good. But like now you see him at Bayern and he's still producing, like now you know why he was so sought after.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean Musiala is still up there, but you can see it's either going all the plays going through either Musiala or Olise. But another player at Bayern Munich that I'm a fan of is Pavlovic. So it'll be interesting because obviously they brought in Polina for good money. Plays that similar role as Pavlovic. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how often that midfield gets rotated between the two.
Yeah, I haven't really watched Pavlovich too much. I know he just turned 20, but yeah, he was ultimately the goal scorer for Bayern this game. Brought him back after Andrić's goal.
Both goals were really good, well taken.
Oh yeah, Xhaka with a nice assist. But
That Gnabry, he got unlucky with the post and then off the rebound crossbar.
oh yeah. And then were there any other games from I guess Saturday that you wanted to touch on? Uh, I think some we can highlight over is just a stunning Barca loss. They lost to Osasuna 4-2 this past weekend,
Yeah, they
which
just
is a
got
little surprising.
outplayed. I think it's just one of the one-off games they had.
Yeah, and it wasn't even that like they got unlucky or anything. It was just Osasuna just really just outplayed
Dominated.
them.
Yeah. It was funny
To
though, because it was like 4-1 and then Barca's second goal, Lamine Yamal, he scores like a banger, but it's just like pointless. But
yeah,
it's
like
like,
last minute of the game.
yeah, but it's a screamer.
And then
We
another
touched a bit on the Atletico game, Atletico Real Madrid.
yeah, so that was on Sunday. And then one more game I think we can touch on from Saturday is just the well Inter, they won 3-2 against Udinese. Lautaro Martinez, surprisingly he's been coming off the bench this year. I've been a little frustrated at that just because he was a shout for me and I think he's one of the most underrated players in the world, but he
I think
came
he
up
started this game though, no?
oh yeah, he did. But I think Champions League he came off
Uh,
the bench.
Gotcha.
Um but he scored 2 goals this game. Kind of won it for them. And then Juventus, they won 3-0 against Genoa. Um and my boy Vlahovic,
Vlahovic, he's heating up this year.
he's been eating this year. Even last year he was I mean, he had chances that he just wasn't finishing off, but his XG was pretty high last year too.
Yeah, Juventus, they're looking pretty good with him.
Yeah, Inter, I guess the one thing that's positive for them with being able to rotate up top with Champions League is just having fresh legs. I think is a positive thing, and that they can compete in both like Syria and the Champions League will probably serve them well.
Mhm.
So, I mean, Arnautovic and Taremi is like nowhere near um Lautaro Martinez's level, I don't think, but they can still fill in some of the games that like they want to rest Martinez,
Agreed. Yeah. Um,
and they still got Tarum too.
yeah, he's a good player. I think the one thing I've been I guess not too surprised about, but seeing the lack of minutes for Douglas Luiz at Juventus or kind of like not
Hmm.
cracking that starting lineup. because he was a big money move.
He comes on for maybe 20, 25 minutes
Hmm.
of the game, but yeah, I mean, that was a player that was really hyped up this offseason and probably a guy that they overpaid for 70 mil. And Villa probably sold him at his peak.
Yeah, I think he kind of hit his peak, and I think Villa kind of won that deal.
Yeah, for sure. And getting Onana, huge upgrade.
The one player I do enjoy watching though for Juventus, other than Vlahovic and Yildiz, is also their one of their defenders, Cambiaso. He's a
Mm.
very interesting player, but he's one to watch. I think he's gonna grow for sure more in the future.
Yeah, they have one defender too. Oh, who's the captain? Gatti.
Oh yeah.
Man, today, so from today's Champions League game, they had a comeback. That man was literally kissing Vlahovic in the face. Like, I was like, bro, what? That man is like ultimate passion merchant.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess moving on to Sunday, we can talk about touch on the Atletico game against Real Madrid. But I think we can also just talk about Real Madrid. They lost today, uh, in the Champions League, to Lille. So yeah, I think that's probably a team we should talk about with Real
Yeah.
Madrid.
And Leo, they're missing one of their key players as well. Angel Gomez. He's kind of
Mm.
like the magician who kind of runs the show, but he was I think he was either injured or he might have got a ban this game. But either way, they're missing Leo was missing one of their key players that runs the midfield, and they were still able to pull a win.
Yeah, I think Modric, he was a huge game changer. He almost had that assist, the classic assist with the outside of his foot to Rodrigo for a header in the Champions League. He almost had that type of assist today. I think to Vinny, maybe. The keeper made a great save. Um, Lille, like their keeper did make a lot of good stops, Chevalier, but ultimately it was a pretty even game.
I thought it was a bold move also starting the youngster Endrick.
Hendrick. Yeah, Hendrick had a couple chances. He looks confident even for a young guy.
Yeah, I forget which game it was. I think it might have been not against Atletico, but the weekend before they're on a breakaway.
Mm.
It was probably the last
Real
Champions League
Sociedad
match.
or
It
oh
might have been the
Champions League?
last Champions League match where he had Vinny and I think Mbappe on the wings as options, and he still
Oh,
like
against
took the shot.
Stuttgart?
Yeah, yeah, versus
Yeah.
Stuttgart, and he still just took it. So
Yeah, he's
yeah,
confident.
he has confidence in himself.
Yeah, Ancelotti, I think signing Mbappe might be an issue for them because even today they were playing Vinny down the middle because they've tried playing Vinny out wide and then Mbappe down the middle. And both those players are identical in their play styles. They love to come in from the left side. They have very similar play styles, and it doesn't make sense like for them to play at the same time. They're both world class, but at doing the same exact thing and playing having the same style. And it just hasn't worked out so far. But the thing with Ancelotti is historically when he's had players like this, he tries to fit all his best players in the starting 11.
Mhm.
It just doesn't seem like these two are going to work out so far.
Yeah, it's just not gelling quite yet.
Do you think it will ultimately work out?
I think if it has to work out, they're gonna have to sacrifice and just keep Mbappe as a striker, just because I think it's Real Madrid is Vinny's team, and I think you just
Hmm.
have to keep Vinny out there on the left, um, and play Mbappe through the down the middle.
Yeah, Mbappe is definitely better than Vinny down the middle. Vinny's not a striker,
Yeah,
and
not at
we
all.
we could clearly see that today. Vinny looked lost up there
Hmm.
and wasn't able to make the same impact. So I agree. I would take Vinny over Mbappe out wide, but again, I had both of those guys as the one of the top scorers in La Liga, and I think you did too. But I don't know. So far, it just doesn't look too good for them.
Yeah, they're just kind of out of whack. And I feel like at times, like we mentioned, they're trying to force it. Uh,
Exactly.
at times, just trying to force to Mbappe. So it's just not flowing well.
No, and then they have holes defensively, and that's probably why Modric isn't starting right now, is because it would be even worse. So, I mean, Bellingham's not really a guy that's gonna put in too much of a defensive shift, um, compared to like Tchouaméni or Valverde. And then if you have Modric coming for one of those guys, then it's gonna be even worse. But I think Modric adds that extra quality going forward. So
Yeah.
it's a real dilemma for Ancelotti there.
It was nice seeing Kamavinga back though.
Yeah, that's true. I thought he was going to be out for much longer just based on that injury.
It looked bad. Um,
Hmm. But he was pretty quiet today, but that's just probably given his first real game back.
was there any other games from either yesterday or today you want to touch on, Champions League wise?
Yeah, one more from the weekend probably, real
Oh, go
quick.
ahead.
So, yeah, we talked about Atletico and Real. Um, so Napoli also got another win, and they had another clean sheet as well. So they've so far they're at the top of the table, and it's scary considering Conte is their manager. I think they're serious title contenders right now.
Yeah, they might be proving me wrong. I had them, I think, fighting for a Champions League spot, whereas I think they can
Hmm.
definitely secure it.
And this is Conte's specialty where he kind of wins the league, comes in, um, and they don't have to worry about other competitions.
Um, and I guess while we stick to Serie A, my prediction for Manager of the Year has officially come to an end already. As we did our last episode, like as we were recording, De Rossi got sacked. So
Yeah, I forget who did I have as manager of the year? Do you remember?
I
Was it
think it might have
Conte?
been Conte. I
Okay.
think
Yeah, I
it was
wouldn't be
either
surprised.
him or Mata is one of them too, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Conte because I've always said he's my manager of all time. I think he's the best. Um, but another game I want to touch on real quick from the weekend was Villa and Ipswich.
Yes. I don't know how we
Man,
missed that one. That was a crazy one.
Delap, what a player. I remember because you've watched the Ipswich a little more in the championship. I remember watching that first game against Liverpool, and the one player that stuck out, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" It was Delap, and you're like, "Oh, that's Delap." You said it so casually, but now the more I watch him, he reminds me of a player from Sporting, Victor
Victor Grokis.
Gorkish.
Yeah.
Gorkish.
Uh-huh.
The way he plays reminds me just of him.
Yeah, not your paciest, but for a big man, like power, has some skill in his locker. Obviously, that second goal was super skillful. Who do you put on the floor? Diego Carlos, I think he sent to
Yeah,
the
Diego
floor.
Carlos. Yep. That, oh my gosh, that scissor and kind of
Yeah,
that was
Ipswich
nasty
was
work.
giving them trouble. Because Delap could have had a hat trick, if he put away that one goal in the first half, where Martinez made a really good save.
Hmm. Just based on the eye test, Delap, he's gonna be a serious problem.
Do you reckon he breaks into England squad for their when's their like next tournament?
Ooh.
I guess they'd be like 2026.
So you're saying the World Cup?
Oh yeah, 26, that'd be the World Cup. Yeah. You reckon he can break in?
See,
He
that's
looks like
tough
he can be
because
the real deal. Because I think he's still 21.
yeah, 21. I mean, England's got a squad though up there with Kane,
Kane,
Watkins,
Solanke still.
Solanke.
But
I
they'd be
think,
like, I think they'd be like 28, 29 that World Cup, Solanke and Watkins. Where
yeah,
and Watkins, he's a player that's heavily reliant on his pace.
pace. Yeah, he's gonna be better than Solanke. I already know.
I think so too.
He'll be clearly better than Solanke based on his age and trajectory. By the time when he gets to Watkins' age, he'll be better, assuming he stays on this course. But man, I was going back and after that first game against Liverpool, I went back and watched some of his other games in the championship, and he really gives me flashes of Victor Gurkic, and obviously he doesn't have the same hype as Victor, but I think he can be a serious problem in the Premier League, and wouldn't be surprised because Ipswich, I think they'll probably get relegated, and if they do, I think some big team's gonna knock on his door.
Yeah. Because when I used to watch Ipswich, especially last year, they had George Hurst who's playing up there. And so I thought he'd carry on, but then once I saw that they signed Delap, I was like, oh wow. Hurst might be dropping off to the bench. But yeah, he's he's definitely the player that if Ipswich stays up, I think it'll come down to him.
And you can see that his finishing is quality, but when he was at Hull, he wasn't grabbing many goals, and that might be a hindrance for him because ultimately, as a striker, you have to grab the goals, and especially him, where he's the pure striker, like that might be a hindrance. But based on what we've seen so far, he has 3 goals now in the Premier League already.
Hmm.
You know he can
Yeah.
get goals. So I'm not sure why in the championship, even though he looked so good, he wasn't able to, put up numbers because he's got the quality. So
I think the one player I still want to see make just a bit more impact for Ipswich is Amari Hutchinson. I had a bit of high hopes. He started off the season a little quiet, but hopefully he turns up. And then, what do you think about your thoughts on Kelvin Phillips?
yeah, I
You
thought he's
think
looked.
you think he's rejuvenating his career a little bit?
He doesn't seem like a player that's quality enough to play for like a Man City or one of the big teams right now, at least. And he seems okay with now to really develop. I think the move to City was a little forced and too early for him.
I think yeah, that just stalled his
Develop
development
exactly. I agree, and I assume he's learned a ton under Pep's system
and under Rodri.
and
Yeah.
under Rodri, like gaining that IQ. So hopefully he's able to transition that, get some more game time. Um, but I mean, he's looked solid so far. So
Hmm.
I don't know if it's gonna reignite his career to go back into a top six type team right now, but I do think he's good enough to start for like mid-level Premier League teams, which is still you have to be a quality player.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think speaking of Villa, we should probably talk on their big game against Bayern today in the Champions League. So you mentioned that Emi Martinez made a big save in Delap in the weekend, and he was a player that really stood out for me against Bayern. He made a ton of great saves this weekend or this afternoon. Um, were you surprised by the result?
Um, I thought it was not too surprised. I was a little surprised at Bayern's performance. I thought they could have done a bit more that first half. I think they were a little quiet and Villa kind of dictated that first half. Um, but I thought it was once second half came around, it was evenly matched. Um, I know you mentioned Duran's worldy to grab the winner, but yeah, Emi Martinez, he had some big saves, especially in those dying minutes. He had a crazy reaction save on who was it? That was I think Musiala. It looked like Musiala was taking a shot, but then someone came across and got a foot to it, but Martinez saved it. And then the last touch of the game, last kick of the game, pretty much Harry Kane had a crazy header. Martinez makes a save.
Yeah, from point blank range.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Rogers was another player that really stood out because, he's been lighting up the Premier League, but I've been hearing things like, is he really, can he compete at like a top level? And, Bayern's the ultimate test.
Yeah.
And I thought he looked exactly like he's been in the Premier League.
He has a very it's crazy because like his presence, he's a quite a big individual and he's very techy for his size and also kind of has pace.
Oh yeah. I love when he kind of makes these bursting runs and I'm just like screaming at the television like get off of me, like he's that type of player, but then he's got the skills too.
Yeah, it's people like drag him down and like he still won't go down.
No.
He's super physical.
There was one break today where they held him back and he still did this nasty turn and he would have
Yeah.
been gone, but like the
The
ref,
ref, yeah.
yeah. I was like,
That was
yo, let him play.
yeah, he was gone, but yeah.
And I mean, Villa also uh they had a goal in the first half. Pau Torres that was called back because of an offside because of I think Ramsey was off, but like still Villa, yeah, we're talking about Emi Martinez making a lot of saves, but Villa also created some chances.
I will say I think that's one player where Villa cannot afford to um lose like through injury or anything. I think Pau Torres is one that um obviously John Duran, he's grabbing like all the late goals and all the headlines, but I think if I think Pau Torres is a crucial player for
Hmm.
Villa. And I think without him, they'd be having some trouble. Um, I know in the weekend game versus Ipswich, they panned the camera over to Tyrone Mings and was like, "Oh, he's back in training, playing with the under 21s." And I'm like, he's not getting in that squad like over Torres at all.
No, I don't think so. Pau Torres is quality.
Hmm.
The two unfortunate occurrences this game for them was definitely the injuries for Ramsey and Onana. Hopefully their injuries aren't anything serious.
Yeah, that'd be a big loss.
Yeah, I know I joke around with Ramsey a lot because that's kind of a player you're high on.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think he's, Bellingham level, but he is a player that he's got massive potential too. And he's come back. He's looked a little quiet for Villa so far since coming back this year, but uh, as much like smack I talk to you about him, he is a player that's got a lot of potential.
I thought it was also interesting, and he looked pretty good. Was Unai Emery giving the start to Philogene
That's a
over
surprising one.
Leon Bailey?
What do you think about Jaden Philogene starting?
I don't know. I don't know if he's quite ready to just
No,
break
I
into
don't.
it just yet. I mean, he's like super exciting. Um, but Leon Bailey, I feel like has to be starting whenever healthy.
Yeah, Jaden Philogene, like he's looked pretty trash in the Premier League so far. I'm not like he has not looked good. He's actually put Villa in trouble in the few games he's come on, like trying to do too much. He does add a little more defensive effort than Leon Bailey, which is a plus, but he also tries a little to play a little too much in dangerous areas. Um, and yeah, to your point, I don't know if he's ready yet.
Definitely a yeah. I don't know if he's starter material yet. I think he can definitely take some learning from Leon Bailey.
But I mean, clearly, huge Champions League game at home against Bayern, and for him to start
Yeah,
and
that's a
get the manager's trust, that's huge. So clearly, Unai sees something in him that we're not seeing.
yeah, it's probably something in training or something. So
And I love seeing Ross Barkley out there today, coming on for Onana, and just him kind of being at this big stage again. It just feels like his career's kind of been revived since Luton's.
The remontada of Ross
Yeah.
Barkley. Yeah, it's
Oh
nice to
yeah.
see. There was um there was another game today, Girona versus Feyenoord. Uh I don't know if you were able to catch that
No,
game.
no, that was one game I didn't catch. But if you want to talk about that,
Yeah, that was a pretty entertaining game. Finished 3-2, Feyenoord getting the win. But Girona, one player that's kind of living up to his name. Um, he's a bit disappointing in the Premier League though, was Brian Hill.
yeah, he's
And I
been
know when
good.
we watch Girona games in La Liga, like it looks like they're always running through him. Like all the
Even against
creativity.
Barca, he was
Yeah.
looking really good.
So like it just continued on today. He was creating a lot of chances. And it always gets me, but like Girona, I keep forgetting to have Dan Juma.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Well, he played for Villarreal like a game or two
hmm
this year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he looked really good too. He set up a goal for Van de Beek today.
Yeah. Your
Um,
boy,
and then Feyenoord, they also have Urian Timber's brother. Um,
his twin, right?
yeah, they
Are they
look
twins?
I think they might be
Let's
their
hope.
playing style is like similar, like both kind of utility type players. Both wear like the wrist tape.
Hmm.
Uh, so it'll be interesting to see if he gets a big move. Um, but yeah, that was another game I wanted to touch on from today's matchups.
A surprising one was Atletico getting dismantled by Benfica.
Yeah,
Di
four
Maria,
zero.
yeah, Di Maria
Jeez.
scored. It was cool to see him. But that was really surprising. Atletico were kind of chasing the game, and were playing a really high line when they were down, starting maybe the 60th minute of the game. But I don't know if that's necessary in this type of format, um, with the new Champions League format. I would think you would want to play less like that,
Because the
and
goal differential will
yeah,
come into a
exactly.
factor.
That comes
Yeah.
into play. So, I mean, that cost them a two additional goals today because they were playing that type of high line. But they look quite poor today. Not sure exactly. Maybe it was just a bad day for them.
Yeah, which is quite surprising coming off such a good performance versus Real Madrid over the weekend.
Yeah.
It was
And then,
crazy to see Benfica, their the first goal scorer, that Kareem uh Ard Argalu. I forget how to
hmm
pronounce that last name. That Turkish player. I didn't realize he's only 25.
yeah, came.
I thought he was
This is
like,
first year at Benfica, right?
yeah, from
Okay.
Galatasaray.
Yeah, they have a
He
couple
looked he looked
Turkish players.
impressive. I mean, he looked
Yeah,
impressive, so I was like, oh, I didn't realize you were 25.
yeah. Benfica have a couple Turkish guys on the team. Cool to see them kind of
Cockshoe.
show. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the game of the day, I think, was Juve versus Leipzig. Uh, I don't know how to feel about Benjamin Sesko. If he deceives me. I don't know if he's a like
I know
quality
that was a
player or
player
not.
that I was riding the train for a while, but
Do you think he's like a quality player? Like, what do you think? Like today, he obviously watching him, he looked quality, but there's days where I'm just like he's kind of deceiving. He has like his moments, it feels like.
yeah, I think he's a very moments type player. He's never really that consistent. Like if we want to talk about consistency for Leipzig, I think it'd be Openda and Xavi Simmons that always,
Xavi Simmons, man,
yeah,
he ran the show.
he's different. Yeah,
He
Sesko is just but when Sesko's on, he's like
mhm.
unstoppable. But then there's games he just goes missing.
Yeah, like today, his first goal was freaking worldly, but then there's games in leagues where he's just nowhere to be found for a few games. But I think Javi Simmons, to your point, is someone who always turns up. It's awesome to see.
Is he on a permanent or is he still on loan?
I'm not sure. They should try definitely try to get him permanently.
Yeah, he's a good fit for them.
And then Juve, I think we touched on a little, is Dusan Vlahovic scored a absolute banger. Even his first goal, yeah, people say it's simple, but like that's a true striker's goal, like to get in front of your defender, get that toe in there. It was a cheeky finish. Um, I think that's like a ultimate striker type goal. But that's a player that I've been in love with for a few years and was hoping he'd come to the Premier League, but it's cool to see him light it up right now for Juve.
Hmm. And then uh Francisco Conceição could have been a super sub of the week too.
Oh, that's a good shout. Yeah, I think if Duran didn't score, he probably would have been my super sub, an assist and goal. His goal was nasty. He made the defender look so silly. Um, he's just like so small too, where he's like kind of quick and low to the ground, kind of like unplayable. Like if you're standing still as a defender, like a tall
Those are,
defender.
yeah, one of those tricky players.
Yeah. So we have one more day of Champions League, just given this new format. Right? Or is it,
No, it's
or was just,
Europa
okay, Europa
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Um,
We back.
so
United.
United back. I'm sorry that it's gonna
Y'all
dis.
play tomorrow Conference League too, right? Or is
Yes,
con
sir.
okay.
We play the Belgian team game.
Oh, nice. KDB's former.
Yeah. And then y'all play Porto. So I'm expecting another sad day for you, Nar.
It's I hope not, but we'll see.
I do think you should be able to pull the win like in on paper, but it, it's gonna be another sad day. Keep an
I
eye
mean,
out though.
honestly, on paper, it's like between like really us and Tottenham that have like the best names on paper, but
In the Euro, yeah.
yeah.
Do keep an eye out though for the forward, Samuel Omorodion. He was linked to Chelsea for the longest this past window, and he was
I
like
thought he
almost
got confirmed.
he was confirmed at one point. Like uh Fabrizio even said live, "Here we go." But then like it just like fell through. I don't know what happened, but
That's why we
he
teamed David Ornstein.
nah Fabrizio, but he's been lighting it up for Porto, so he might be a player that gives WWE superstar Lisandro Martinez some trouble tomorrow.
Chill.
I could see that
He's an
happening.
Atletico Madrid product or
No, he Granada.
Granada. Okay.
Yeah, he came from there. And then he played 1 year at in La Liga with uh Alves. Alaves.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, keep an eye out for him. And then so Porto might pull some points
It's at
tomorrow.
Porto too.
In yeah, I think that's going to be an issue. And then just moving on to this weekend, real quick, just to give our listeners a heads up on what to watch in the Premier League on Saturday. Um, I think a big game here will be West Ham Ipswich, two teams that are towards the bottom. Will be interesting to see what happens there. Um, and then is there any that kind of stand out to you from Premier League on Saturday or even Sunday? I think Villa United is a Man United's going to be a the game of the weekend.
Yeah, I think I'm scared. Because I think Europa League and Villa are two big games. And this is again last games before international break, and
And Villa get an
use
extra day of rest.
yeah, an international break. There's it's a lot of sacking that goes around, so Usually, whenever Ten Hag's been in this situation where his back's against the walls, players for some reason kind of put out like a all-out 10 out of 10 performance. Um, but we'll see. I think Sunday, actually, the game of the day might be that Brighton Tottenham. I think that might be exciting. It'd be like a
Hmm.
basketball game, pretty much.
Yeah. Another one to keep an eye out for our listeners is on Saturday, Real Madrid versus Villarreal. Uh, Villarreal is definitely a team to watch for right now. They're top three in the league. Um, Nicolas Pepe has found some form, surprisingly, this year. Eric Bailly's been pretty consistently good this year as well. Um, and then one player that I like is their forward, Thierno Berry, their forward. He's
Mhm.
been solid. He had a really nice assist this past weekend. Um, so I think that's definitely a team to kind of keep an eye on. So they play Real Madrid. We'll see if Real can kind of find some form. And then Ioisi Perez too. He's been scoring some goals for Villarreal.
And then Saturday, also, Aaron Ramsdale gets his revenge return on Arsenal.
Oh, unfortunate. He'll
Yeah.
get some shot stopping practice for sure.
hmm
Um, and then on Sunday we also have Atletico Madrid versus Real Sociedad. I think Real Sociedad's always kind of a problem. They looked very good against Real Madrid, even though they lost. Uh, they're towards the bottom of the table right now, but hopefully they can find some footing.
You guys have a pretty tricky matchup as well, Nottingham.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that we're gonna pull all 3 points against Nottingham. Um, I think that's probably one of our easier matches before we have a tough run. So we'll have after Nottingham, we have Liverpool, Newcastle, and then United and Arsenal in the league. So it's gonna be a tough run after Nottingham, but I expect us to get all three this weekend.
I cannot say the same.
No, I think Ten Hag's definitely on the hot seat right now. So, but it's been another episode of Super Subs podcast. Thanks for everyone for listening. Peace out.